Kevin, we are 2.5 weeks away from WrestleMania 40. WrestleMania 40. 40 up in here, pal. It's getting
Four
exciting.
zero, pal. 4-0.
4-0, pal. Unbelievable. WWE pretty much got the cards set for this year's one. We're going to do a preview in the coming weeks. Going to do some more extra content. There's more content on the current stuff to come. This is just a little trip down memory lane content. I noticed, a lot of the big creators and just people generally are winding back the clock, doing WrestleMania reviews. This WrestleMania, like this wrestler's WrestleMania legacy. This WrestleMania wasn't as bad as you remember. All this different content. We're today, Kevin, going to do the top 10 WrestleMania matches. No specific order for this. We thought about it a year ago, Kevin, as you know, and as our listeners would know if you've been listening a while. We did some what are the top 10 WrestleManias or top 10 this, and we rank things. And then we'd each have my number 10 is this, your number 10 is that. And the show went for 2.5 hours because we both disagree on things, and it goes so long. This will be more straight to the point, a nice, digestible, easy listen for you. So, Kevin, how you doing, pal?
I'm great, pal. I can't wait to deep dive into this. I just want to plug my own channel. I did a WrestleMania 19 retrospective, pal, talking about all the behind-the-scenes dirt that took place at WrestleMania, like Stone Cold Steve Austin nearly dying of a heart attack in an elevator on the way to the gym and having to be rushed to the hospital and being on IV the day of WrestleMania 19. So there was that. And then, the fact that Kurt Angle broke his neck 4 weeks out before the event due to the result of negligence from Brock Lesnar, pal, being unsafe in the ring. So yeah, a lot of chaos at WrestleMania 19. Check it out in my video, pal.
I love that. It was a good video as well. You're not paying me to say that either. So, Kevin, without further ado, let's just jump in here. What I want to do is just a couple of quick honorable mentions. We don't need to spend 35 minutes discussing each honorable mention. I just want to mention a couple of WrestleMania matches that if we don't bring these up, people will outrage at us and say your list has no credibility. So, Kevin, do you want to start us off with any of your honorable mentions, pal?
Yeah, I think I'll go with this one, which I think a lot of people would have this in their top 10. And it wasn't my top 10, but it wasn't in yours, so we kind of had to, give you a peek behind the curtain. We had to force it out, pal. It didn't make the consensus, consensus list. So,
Consent.
Yeah, oh my god. Oh, Vince McMahon, pal. All these videos on Vince McMahon I'm making, pal. They got me thinking about consent. So yeah, WrestleMania 17, the main event, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock. And your reasoning for not putting it in the top 10 for you was the ending sucked, which is fair. I'll address that right up front. The ending sucked. For me, it's a top 10 match for a couple of reasons. One, it's probably the greatest spectacle ever. It's just a one-on-one wrestling match that WWE's ever done. The only thing really that rivals it, in my opinion, is Cena Rock. From a spectacle, like a grandeur standpoint. There's Rock and Hogan as well, but I Austin Rock. Look, this is the peak of the Attitude Era, right?
Yeah.
The absolute apex, and it's the two biggest stars. We've never had a 1A, 1B the way that we had Rock and Austin. There was Cena in the PG era, and then there was CM Punk was here.
Yeah.
Not even on the screen, pal. So just the star power. The match quality was great. The storytelling was simple. The My Way intro. So yeah. Go ahead, pal. Take it over.
That's fair. That's fair. I think previous versions of me would have this top 10 objectively. Because of the Vince McMahon stuff now, I think I see him involved in that ending. One, they obviously, everyone knows, they did the wrong ending. Austin should have stunned McMahon after using him to beat The Rock, and then ends the show. Everyone knows that's what should have happened. It didn't, obviously. But yeah, Vince's involvement in this tarnishes it for me. Which is a bit hypocritical, I must say, in advance, because I do have the Benoit triple threat match on my list, but at the same time, whatever. It's my rankings, pal, whatever. But no, stiff match to miss out. Objectively great. Just objectively 5 stars for using the Meltzer terminology, pal. So it was just stiff to miss out here. So I'm not saying it's bad. It's just if I had to watch 5 to 10 matches, I wouldn't pick that one of my first 5 to 10. That'd be 12 or whatever, 13. So. All right, Kevin, my honorable mention is going to be, as I touched on a moment ago, the Triple H, Benoit, Shawn Michaels. Very controversial and justifiably so because of what Benoit ended up doing 3.5 years later. But what happened at WrestleMania 20, that spectacle, the WrestleMania 20 main event, Jim Ross's commentary factors in quite a bit here. This is a legendary commentary performance, which sticks out in my mind. The moment of Benoit winning, hugging Eddie. Obviously, yes, lots happened years after, I know. obviously. But in isolation, the match was excellent. It's a Shawn Michaels WrestleMania match in the 2000s. So it was by default great and fantastic. Triple H, some would say in his apex of the reign of terror, pal. This is Triple H at his absolute best. And then you got Chris Benoit, the underdog babyface, pal. So yeah, I thought the match has worked really well. Some people say, yeah, it was great, but it wasn't like that next tier. To me, even if the match wasn't as good, like in ring or bell to bell, as some of the other matches we're going to discuss, because of what happened at the end, because of the moment, Jim Ross shouting the 18-year odyssey, it's come true, and him just yelling, confetti, crying. It's all about the moment, pal. Like if hypothetically WrestleMania 39 ends, Cody beats Roman Reigns, there's the confetti, the big moment, crying, that match will be in my list because like the moment adds to the match and it fits really well. But nonetheless, pal, that's my honorable mention. There you have it.
Yeah, we love that, pal. The WrestleMania 20, the match that infamously Kevin Nash said that killed wrestling. He was like, "Oh, you got these two vanilla midgets, pal, that are as tall as the referee." There hasn't been a big WrestleMania moment since then, and then
so the guy responsible for derailing WCW just about, yeah, he's going to comment on what killed wrestling. Yeah, good one, Kevin. Anyway,
yeah, that was interesting. I remember listening to that. I'm like, yeah, maybe he's not wrong that there hasn't been a big WrestleMania ending since then. But then we got the Daniel Bryan Yes movement, and we're gonna get Cody's story potentially, unless Jacob Fatu comes out with a hoodie, pal, and hits Cody in the neck with a thumb, and we get Roman just standing on Cody's chest. And
stop! I can't listen to that. Let's move on, Kevin. Let's kick this off. The 10, okay? What match do you want to go over first?
I don't want to get too crazy. Let's not get too crazy yet. Let's start with something light, pal. Let's start with an appetizer, if you will. And that's Hulk Hogan versus The Rock. WrestleMania 18. Icon versus icon. This match here. Now, yes, in the ring, whatever. This match may not be the best technical wrestling match. This is not Okada versus Ospreay in a 7 1/4, 45-minute, just classic match. But this is, again, a spectacle, like I said about Austin Rock. And I think what makes this match so special is the organic crowd reaction that the fans in Toronto gave Hogan and The Rock. Going in, Hogan was the heel. He was the NWO guy. Rock is the babyface, the next anointed pal. He's got the torch from Austin. Austin is walking out. Austin's in the mid card here against Scott Hall. He's about to leave in 6 weeks after being forced to job to Brock Lesnar on an episode of Raw. So Rock is the guy. Hogan's here, pal. Triple H and Jericho main evented this show for no reason. They couldn't even follow this match. This is like, some people may say WrestleMania 18 is a one-match show, and this is it. This is WrestleMania 18. This match is WrestleMania 18. It was Hulk Hogan, the biggest star from the 80s. The Rock, the biggest star of the late 90s and 2000s, arguably. And they're going at it. It was just the crowd. The way they played to the crowd was incredible. It was basic wrestling 101. And I don't think we've ever seen a crowd reaction like it since. And we may never see it again. We never saw it before. It was just incredible.
Yeah, this is all spectacle, as we discussed. If you watch this match muted, it's meh. But if you watch this with like the sound on, which is what wrestling is, wrestling's about engaging the crowd. Wrestling's Cirque du Soleil. It's live theater. It's live, like that's what it is. This match is perfect in that regard. How the crowd was engaged. I was so invested, so loud that when Triple H and Jericho political chess their way into the main event and had to follow it, it was never going to follow that. Like, it's another one. Like, Triple H had multiple WrestleMania main events where he's following the real main event, and then the crowd's just not into it nearly as much. So, yeah, this match, Hogan Rock, incredible. You can watch this. It's easy to watch. It's, 15 minutes, if that. Then there's obviously the stuff at the end with Kevin Nash and Hall rundown and whatever. And Hogan is the good guy, pal. The crowd are cheering. And, Hogan, the grizzled old Terry Bollea, pal. This is a few years before the sex tape with Bubba the Love Sponge's wife, pal. Blistering. There you go.
Oh, my God. All right, let's talk TLC II.
Yeah,
I think that's the next one. Let's talk about that.
Yeah.
This is probably on a short list of the 3 or 4 matches that I would show to a non-wrestling fan to make them a wrestling fan. Like someone that's never seen any wrestling, they're like, oh, I don't know about that stuff, bro. It's fake. It sucks. I don't know about that. It's for kids. Hey, watch this TLC match at WrestleMania 17 and then tell me what you think. It's one of the best matches ever in wrestling history, period. Like this could arguably be on a top 10 list of all time, just in general wrestling matches. This match is so damn good. It's easy to watch. It's easy to follow. This one arguably, I mean, it made Edge and Christian, and I mean, especially Edge and Jeff Hardy. I would say those two guys went on to become Hall of Famers and huge stars, and the Dudleys and Christian and Matt Hardy, like they all are still making a living today in the wrestling world, pretty much because of this match. Like this is a star-making match if there ever was one. This match, no doubt, stole the show at WrestleMania 17.
Yeah,
it created a craze that we've seen now. Like these guys kind of gave birth to like the indie craze and like the high spots and like the Darby Allin stuff, where Darby Allin's going through shoot glass pal while CM Punk's in a stint at home screaming at his TV.
That's great.
So yeah, it's just, if you watch it, like I've seen this match probably 50 times at least in my life. It's one of those, if you've never seen it for whatever reason, you got to watch it like tomorrow.
This was a video game match.
Yes.
This is the sort of match which, this is literally a video game in real life. And it's one of the few matches in history you can really say that about. It was just unbelievable. It's one, as I agree with you, this is one of the matches, if someone said, Jimmy, show a non-wrestling fan a match, I'll go that one. Because like you don't have to really follow this. There's not some intense story. You have to know 10 years of background to understand. It's literally just, here's these 6 wrestlers and then supplementary pieces of Spike Dudley and Rhino and those guys and Lita. There's like these people, watch this. It's 15 minutes, all killer, no filler. It's a legendary match. So yeah, no, it's just a classic. It's one of those matches where it defines WrestleMania 17 alongside the match you discussed earlier with Austin and Rock, as well as the great show around the pal, including Gimmick Battle Royal pal. So yeah, there you have it. TLC 2, incredible video game-like match, pal. I'm going to move it on to another one, okay? This is a match. I'm going to kick this to you because you were there.
Ooh.
Ric Flair
Ooh.
versus Shawn Michaels.
Ooh.
WrestleMania 24, pal. Forget what's happened with both these guys since, particularly Ric Flair.
Yeah.
He's in isolation. You're in the building. Talk to us.
Well, I got the goosebumps, pal. Just thinking about that atmosphere, being there. So this was at WrestleMania 24 in Orlando. And the storyline going in was Ric Flair was like, oh, if you lose one match, pal, you have to retire. So he was wrestling up to this show. Like, he wrestled at Royal Rumble 08 against MVP, won that match, whatever. And then he's like, I want to wrestle Shawn at WrestleMania. And it's really like, in reality, this is 2 Mount Rushmore guys going at it. Like, yeah, Rick was past his prime. Shawn was about to retire. But Shawn was still, like, at the tail end of his prime. So Shawn was able to carry Ric Flair here just to an awesome match. And being there in person, it was really a phenomenal moment. Rick's kids were there in the crowd. The whole crowd was cheering woo, and you could feel the emotion when Shawn was like doing the whole spot at the end. He's like, I'm sorry, I love you. This might be the best story told in a wrestling match ever. It's up there with another match that we're going to talk about later on in this discussion. But yeah, from a storytelling standpoint, I don't think it gets any better than this. This is another one that I would show people that have never seen wrestling. Like, it just watch this. This is cinema, as they say nowadays. And yeah, being there, Shawn hits the pin on Flair, and then everybody's screaming woo out into the parking lot, pal. Even after WrestleMania went off the air, people are walking to the garages. I still remember it. Everybody, like it was yesterday, everybody's screaming woo, woo. And yeah, I mean, it was a great send off for an all-time legend. And we're definitely not going to address what happened with the TNA run and Shawn's return in Australia or Saudi Arabia, wherever it was. We're not going to talk about any of that stuff.
Yeah, where Kane's mask fell off, pal. But no, that being said, now this was just, I mean, you were there, so your insight's always going to be better than mine. I've just watched this like everyone else who wasn't in the stadium. It's just the emotion of the match. It's so well done. Commentary was fantastic as well. The presentation of it all. Ric Flair, like the entrance was so grand. And then obviously this is Shawn at WrestleMania in the 2000s. So this is probably the WrestleMania 2000. Shawn is the greatest performer ever. It just year to year, like what he produced year to year for WrestleMania here, just unbelievable. This was no exception. Just simply incredible. How they worked the match. Just, yeah, there's not much more you can say about it. Pretty much everyone listening to this, I assume, has seen this. Phenomenal. Just absolutely phenomenal, pal. Anything else on that one, or do you want to move it along?
Yeah, no. Let's kick it over, pal. Should we kick it up a notch? Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Just a little bit, pal.
Let's kick it up, pal.
Just a little bit. So, I want to talk about what I think is a top 5, top 6 match ever. I know we're not doing any particular order, but I think this is a defining match for WrestleMania. And that's Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon at WrestleMania 10. That match, I know Bret Hart would go on record to say he had the first ladder match. Okay, it was at a house show, Bret. It was at a house show, pal. You know, I know you hate Shawn, but I mean, come on. Shawn and Razor put the ladder match on the map. This match is maybe the most influential match ever. Maybe. It's up there with Savage Steamboat in terms of influence. This is just a match that everybody studies, even wrestlers to this day, people that are breaking into wrestling, I'm sure study it. I can't speak for them, but I'm sure they do. Like how could you not? Everything they did was way ahead of its time. This is a match you could take from 1994 and you could drop it into 2024 and it would be just fine. You know, it would still be, by this standards, you drop this to 2024, it'd probably be like a 4-star match. I think people would look at it like, oh, good match, you know? It's not Okada versus Ospreay, pal. It's not Omega versus Daniel Bryan, pal. But, you know, it's a good match, bro. That's probably what people would say now, unfortunately. But at the time, this was way ahead of its time. It was a revelation. And it really shapes WrestleMania 10 into really an all-time great WrestleMania. I mean, there was 2 top 10, top 12 matches that took place at WrestleMania 10. And this one, I just think for the sheer, for the moments, that splash that Shawn did from the top of the ladder, that's a moment that you're going to see replayed forever. As long as WWE is around, pal. Long after Nick Khan is done with these ridiculous deals, pal, in 40, 50 years, you're still going to see Shawn jumping off the ladder to splash Razor. Just an absolutely epic match. One of those that, again, I've seen so many times in my life. And it just never gets old.
Yeah. Well, pal, Nick Khan's the corporate officer, pal. Anyway. Just WrestleMania 10 generally. You touched on Shawn and Razor. I'll mention Bret and Owen now. This is the other match, which probably not as revolutionary in the sense of what Shawn and Razor did for the ladder match, because as you touched on, it trailblazed the next 3 decades. It's now 30 years later, and ladder match culture as a whole, and just like those high spot matches were so heavily influenced by this, with Shawn and Razor, 2 of the great in-ring performers, Shawn particularly. But as far as Bret and Owen goes, brother versus brother. Obviously, they're doing Jimmy versus Jey Uso this year. That match isn't going to be this. This was just just perfect. It's a family. It's intense. It's a heated personal battle. These 2 grew up wrestling each other, grew up training together, and then they're on WrestleMania 10. At that point, obviously, this is the big WrestleMania at the time. Pal, WrestleMania 10 in MSG. They do their thing, pal. 20 minutes. It was just, pal, from a crispness and a technicality in-ring point of view, pal. This is another match that gets studied. This is a match which flowed so well. Everything was so well choreographed and worked, and the flow was great. The story they told was their brothers, the sibling thing. It was just fantastic. I mean, at WrestleMania 10 having 2 of these in one show, that's incredible. And it shows how bad the rest of WrestleMania 10 was, that WrestleMania 10 isn't an objectively all-time top 3 WrestleMania. When you have these 2 matches on a 3-hour show, and you're not even a top 5 WrestleMania objectively, it goes to show you how people weren't into seeing Yokozuna in the main event, pal. Lex Luger, or Randy Savage going on 3rd in some random pointless match against Crush, I think it was. All this other trash they were doing. But nonetheless, Bret and Owen opened the show. Best WrestleMania opener of all time. Just absolutely crushed at these 2. What a match.
Absolutely. And can we pause for a moment? I just want to mention 2 matches that are not on our list, but we definitely just have to talk about them for a minute.
Yep.
That's Hogan and Andre from WrestleMania 3.
Yep.
That match really paved the way for WrestleMania to be what it is. That match made WrestleMania what it is. And then the other one is the one that we saw last year at WrestleMania 39 between McIntyre, Gunther, and Sheamus. I think because of the star power, or lack thereof of star power in comparison to the rest of this list, that match may never get the recognition that it deserves. But it is the only 5-star match in WrestleMania history. Correct me if I'm wrong on that. No, Bret and Austin. I think Meltzer gave that one 5 stars. Yeah. So this is the second 5-star match in WrestleMania history. It's worth a mention. I just want to ask you: do you think that does that sit right with you? That triple threat match is the only other 5-star match in WrestleMania history?
Just off our list alone, and we'll get to these matches in more detail. Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels not being a 5-star match. That match is wrestling. And then let alone some of these other ones. Like, I mean, I'll discuss we'll discuss end of an era with Undertaker and Triple H, and there's all like obviously Bret and Owen, and like they always matches we're talking about Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, pal, like the GOAT match. I don't know. That doesn't sit well with me at all, pal. But it's Meltzer. That's his opinion. It's wrong, but we have our own opinions. There you go.
Exactly. Well, what match do you want to talk about next, pal?
Now, I mean, I touched on it then. I want to discuss The Undertaker and Triple H from WrestleMania 28. This is like the first WrestleMania I lived. I tuned in like August, September 2011. So WrestleMania 28 to me has like a special place in my heart, pal. As they're building up, obviously, once in a lifetime and end of an era at the same show. Like they both felt like, oh my god, this is it. And obviously, knowing what we know now, pal, we got The Undertaker in Saudi Arabia, Shawn Michaels, Triple H in 2018. That sort of put a dampener on this in hindsight. And you've got with The Rock and Cena, they did that match the next year. So both of them got a bit tarnished in the long run. But as in isolation, pal, Undertaker, Triple H, Shawn as the referee, inside Hell in a Cell. You could have gone to this, pal. You could have easily gone to this. You could have been in the building.
I should have.
When Shawn Michaels hit the sweet chin music into a pedigree, Michaels screaming, "Streak's over! Streak's over! Streak's over!" Oh! And then Undertaker kicks out. And then everyone was like, "Oh my god!" That was the best near fall in the history of the streak.
Absolutely,
unreal. What can you say? 30 minutes. The story involved. This was a fitting end to the 4-year, I guess, odyssey, pal. There was The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and then ultimately Triple H, WrestleMania, the full thing they had going on in the mid WrestleMania 20s. Incredible. I mean, what more can you say? They're all hugging at the end. It's a fitting end of an era match. Kevin, what do you say, pal?
Well, this was the other match I was referring to when I was talking about world-class storytelling during Shawn and Ric Flair. Yeah, Shawn and Ric Flair discussion. This is the other one. This is a world-class masterclass in storytelling. I remember watching this live, and I was so hooked. I don't think I've ever been as hooked watching a wrestling match in my life. Just watching it live, experiencing it in the moment as it's happening on pay-per-view at home. I don't think I've been that hooked. Shawn and WrestleMania, Shawn and Taker from WrestleMania 25 was up there, but this one I was far more hooked in. It was incredible, and you really thought that Triple H was gonna win, and there was a lot of emotion going in because a lot of people were like, "Oh, I don't want Triple H to win." So there was a little bit of that built-in animosity there, "Oh, if Triple H wins, he's Vince's son-in-law, Stephanie's husband. Does he need to win the streak? Beat the streak? But then it was in that moment you didn't care. You wanted to see Triple H win after that big sweet chin music into the pedigree. It was oh my god, that would have been a fitting way to end the streak if it happened.
Yeah,
people would have been okay with it. It was just, that match was incredible. That picture of the three of them hugging on the stage, incredible. And it truly was an end of an era. Shawn was pretty much done. He didn't do a whole lot. He did some stuff with Daniel Bryan, some appearances here and there. Triple H wrestled a few more matches. Undertaker wrestled a few more matches. But that era became a bygone era. That was the Attitude Era. That was the late 90s, 2000s. And it truly was the end of an era. We got the Shield later on after that. AJ Styles, all these guys coming in, and WWE changed forever. And a few years later.
Well, yeah, I mean, but what this was, you get 3 of the top 8 wrestlers of all time in a Hell in a Cell with 80,000 people at a WrestleMania with a fitting 4-year-long story in that regard, but really a multi-decade-long story, and it was magic. So, yeah, absolutely unbelievable, phenomenal stuff. That being said, pal, we'll move on to another. All these are classic matches, pal. Do you want to just talk about the Big Daddy while we're talking about Undertaker and Shawn? I'm just going to go there, pal. Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, the greatest match ever. It just is what it is. I'm not even hearing a discussion. This was perfect, basically. I know that doesn't really get thrown around a lot in wrestling. This had everything. I mean, you touched on it briefly when you were talking a moment ago, but I mean, you got the heaven versus hell thing, the streak, which at that stage was what, 16-0?
16-0, 16-0, yeah.
16-0. So it's a proper streak. It's not like it was 9-0. This was getting close to 20-0 almost. So you have that Undertaker, that element in there. Shawn in the peak of his powers. This is Shawn Michaels after the Ric Flair match the year before. He's having classic after classic every year through the 2000s. This has come to 2009. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. And what they did for 30 minutes there, I mean, everyone's watching this or listening to this has seen this match. I'd imagine if you haven't, once you finish listening to the show, go watch that match immediately. Commentary, great. Shawn, legendary performance. Undertaker, legendary performance. This was the true WrestleMania main event. This was the WrestleMania main event of the 25th WrestleMania. No one can tell you otherwise. Triple H and Randy Orton going out there to settle their heated blood feud in a singles match with no stipulation or anything. No, stop, pal. Triple H and Randy Orton throwing each other through their living room windows. Get that crap out of here. Shawn, Undertaker, Shawn descending from heaven, pal, coming down. Undertaker ascending from the depths of hell, having a WrestleMania match, pal. This was the greatest match in the history of wrestling, the greatest WrestleMania match, without debate. How this wasn't 5 stars to Meltzer makes him look like a clueless clown with no credibility. One of the great matches ever, the greatest ever, the greatest WrestleMania match ever. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I really can't refute you because this is my favorite match ever. Now, will I go as far to say as this is the greatest wrestling match ever? I don't know. I don't know if I'm there yet. I really have to think about that. That's such a bold statement that I'm not ready to make just yet. For me, the top 2 WrestleMania matches is this one, Taker Shawn, WrestleMania 25, and Bret versus Austin, WrestleMania 13, which I'll talk about
Kevin. So you said top 2. So obviously, yeah, Undertaker, Shawn, objectively the GOAT match. You're telling me your other greatest match wasn't Shane McMahon, Miz, and Snoop Dogg?
Oh, yeah, wow. You got me, pal. I mean, that was a Matt classic, pal. That was like watching Okada Omega 3, pal.
Pal, Shane McMahon's knee chute exploded in the middle of a WrestleMania ring, and Snoop Dogg jumped in the ring, called an audible, and then counted the pin. Anyway, pal.
Nick Khan set up Shane McMahon for this business, pal, to push out Shane McMahon from the company, pal. So, yeah, baseless allegations. There is no seriousness behind that. That's all baseless, pal. So yeah, like I said, this is my favorite wrestling match, that being Taker versus Shawn, WrestleMania 25. I remember I was like 12 years old watching this. My parents, at that point, they were ordering WrestleMania for me every year. I had watched every WrestleMania from like 17 on to like probably 28. I think it was the last one I ordered. No, 29 was the last one I ordered on pay-per-view. So I was a kid, and I was like, my friends were like knocking on my door, like, "Hey, come on, let's go play basketball. Let's go play football." I was like, "No, Jack. It's WrestleMania 25. I gotta watch this show." Like, I was so hyped for you have no idea how hyped I was for that Triple H Randy Orton match. Like, as a kid, I really thought like Triple H got arrested and like Randy Orton got like killed. I thought I was scarred for a little while. I was like, oh my god, Triple H broke into Randy Orton's house, like threatened his wife, like, oh my god. So like, I was like 12 years old eating that up, pal. And again, this was before like 12-year-olds, like when you were 12, you had an iPad in your hand and whatever. Like, I wasn't reading wrestling news. Like, it was just a different time. So, I was like, oh my god, this is crazy. This could be the craziest match ever. Like, I have to watch this. Like, I didn't really even care that much about Taker versus Shawn. I cared mostly about Matt versus Jeff. Because they remember that whole storyline where they were, or you know about the storyline where they were like, oh, Matt burned down Jeff's house. Like, I tried to kill your dog. I hate you. And it was like, oh my god, this is crazy. We got these personal blood feuds for no reason in the middle of the PG era. We got Matt Hardy trying to kill Jeff Hardy and his dog. We got Triple H terrorizing Randy Orton and his wife in his house. And there's no blood in either of those matches. No weapons. Like, there were weapons in the Jeff and Matt match, but it was like a PG Extreme Rules match, like whatever. Yeah. The real match, but then the real match that captivated me as I'm 12 years old telling my friends to F off so I can watch WrestleMania was Taker versus Shawn. And I remember like sitting on my living room floor just like, oh my god, this is incredible. Like, I would say that was probably the moment where like I fell back in love with wrestling. And I was like, wow, this is just it, bro. I mean, this match had it all. The crowd was so invested, and it was in Texas, in both these guys' hometown. I mean, you can't write this stuff, bro. Cinema, pal. The crowd was behind both of them. That's enough about that. I'm going to transition into Austin versus Bret. What I think is arguably the greatest WrestleMania match of all time. I think there's definitely an argument for it. One, this match ushered in the Attitude Era, essentially. Like, I know it was Vince's promo, and he's like, we're pushing the envelope. But I feel like this is what started it. The story behind this is iconic. Maybe I'll do a video one day about the story behind this match. The blood with Austin, that iconic image of him bleeding, with Bret having him in the sharpshooter, that made Austin into a star. Austin was a heel going in. Bret was a babyface going in. They flip-flopped. They did the switch of the century, pal. Austin leaves this match the biggest babyface in wrestling history, goes on to break records, set the WWE off into the stock market and billions of dollars, ends up becoming the Michael Jordan of WWE, makes it global, all that stuff. Bret Hart ends up getting screwed 4 months later, 5 months later, 7 months, whatever it was, winds up in WCW, loses his ambition, loses his will to be a wrestler, and then we know what happens with Bret Hart. So, long story short, these two guys had unbelievable chemistry. This is another match that just, it looks real. Like, this is probably one of the most realistic matches I've ever seen. It just looked like these guys hate each other. Like, they brawled all throughout the crowd, outside. There was blood, like I said. There was a little bit of weapons, but it was a submission match. And the beauty of this match is that it wasn't supposed to be great. This was on arguably one of the worst WrestleManias of all time, WrestleMania 13. Had the poorest buy rate in the history of any WrestleManias. It was just a match in the middle of the show. You know, Shawn didn't want to do the job for Bret. They were supposed to run the match back from WrestleMania the year prior. Shawn had an injured foot, whatever. Now we're doing Bret and Austin. Here you go, pal. And this match has unintentionally ended up becoming the best match ever. Very important. One of the most important matches, if not the most important match in wrestling history. Saves WWE, pal. Ushers in Austin, makes him a big star. Everything about it's greatness personified.
Yeah, when you talk about how real it looked, the legitimacy, Ken Shamrock's involvement in this was, it can't be understated. But when he's in the peak of his powers as a MMA fighter, this age, he's this jacked guy you want to F with, and he's like the referee and all this sort of business. Like, all of it, it clicked so well, as you touch on. It looked real, it looked legitimate. It flipped both guys and changed the trajectory of wrestling forever. I think few matches have had as much impact on the business long term as this. Yes, as we'll discuss in a few moments with Savage and Steamboat, that influenced multiple generations of people stylistically. And then obviously we discussed the ladder match with Shawn and Razor earlier, with how that influenced the ladder match and changed the ladder match forever. This, I mean, what can you say? This was the catalyst in many regards, the Attitude Era, as you said. This changed the trajectory of Bret. Well, not only changed the trajectory of Bret's career, but I mean, you look back on it now, like this was this like the last truly great thing Bret Hart did in wrestling, really? Because obviously there was a screw job, which wasn't a great thing. That was just a controversial and infamous thing. And then he fizzled out in WCW, and then he came back in 2010 and won the US title. So,
yeah, maybe the last. I mean, he had a great SummerSlam match that year in '97 with Taker, I believe it was, but it wasn't to the level of this match. Yeah. The Austin Bret feud is another, like, a top 10 feud. If we ever do that one day, like, that's a top 10 rivalry.
And so, no doubt about that at all, pal. Moving on, the other match I want to discuss before we get to the final one, I want to discuss Cold and Shawn. While we're talking about like legendary WrestleMania matches, which is just like textbook, like, you know, you show on the third week of wrestling school with a new class of, you know, amateur wrestlers who want to be wrestlers, who are training. Show them this. Cold and Shawn, these are two of the greatest in the peak of their powers. WrestleMania, 30 minutes go. That's what this was, and it was just unbelievable. Story was pretty simple. It's called interpromotional, pal. Raw vs SmackDown, pal. Look at these two legends wrestle, and it was just phenomenal. I guess, yeah, you watch the match, pal. Obviously, I haven't trained to be a wrestler, but from a psychology, a choice of moves, storytelling, work rate, crispness, pal. All these like terms, like the insider wrestling, everything goes into it. This was perfect in many of those regards. Unbelievable. And then, yeah, the emotion of the match, obviously, you've got the drama and like the storytelling going in, which is both guys, Cold and Shawn, some of the most versatile performers ever. Both can be so serious, so great in the ring, so good technically. But obviously the sexy Kurt thing and all the storyline they had with Sherry and all this other fun stuff they were doing. And then you get to the ring and it's like, oh my God. So, yeah, pal, you live this. I'm asking you, pal, what was this like to live live, pal?
Oh, pal, I mean, this match is another one where it was like not supposed to be as great as it was. Like, a lot of times, right, when you have a match like prime Kurt Angle and prime Shawn Michaels, right, a lot of times people overhype it so much, and then you see the match and it's like, it was good, you know, good match, not what I thought it would be. But this is like, okay, Kurt Angle versus Shawn, going into it, it's like, oh my God, who are the best ever? Who are the best in-ring performers ever? This match is going to be great. And it lived up to everyone's expectations, and then some. I mean, this is another one I've seen countless times. I love this match. This is probably like a top 5 favorite match of mine. Just I love it overall. Like I can watch this match all the like I watch it like every year, at least once a year, along with some of these other matches on this list. But this one in particular was just incredible. And WrestleMania 21 is a sneaky like top 5 WrestleMania contender.
Yeah.
It's a very good WrestleMania. Peak of the Ruthless Aggression era. This was prime Perk Angle, pal. This was Kurt Angle on 75 Vicodins and Percocets and vodka, pal. Just going out there going crazy. And this is all stuff he said in interviews. Again, I'm not putting words in anyone's mouth, pal. This is all stuff that Kurt Angle said on record. You can hear him say it himself. So, yeah, I mean, it's incredible. Just imagine if he was sober. Imagine Kurt Angle sober, bro. How good this match would have been. It would have been like a 7.5 star match if he was sober. So, yeah, just the fact he was able to do it like that, incredible. Go ahead.
Well, Kevin, WrestleMania 21 without the sumo match is objectively a top 3 WrestleMania ever. But like, obviously, because of the sumo match, people will be like, is it top 5? I'll put a 7, like whatever. And lastly, last match to discuss here, Randy Savage, Ricky Steamboat,
Yes.
WrestleMania 3. Now we look here in 2024, 37 years on. So this is basically 2 generations on now, essentially. What this match did for wrestling, for inspiring wrestlers' styles, choreographing matches, flow of matches. This was, I dare say, 2 generations ahead of its time, which is pretty crazy. This happened in 1987. It's now 2024. And yes, once again, as you said with one of the matches earlier, if this exact match happened nowadays, it's probably like, yeah, pretty good match. Yeah, objectively, really good match. But this in 1987 was mind-blowing. This, from what these guys did, in the climate of the WWF in 1987, where it's literally everyone who's just a steroided meathead screaming at each other, hitting, the big splash by the Warrior, pal. There's a leg drop. Oh. And then you get this, which, obviously there's the stuff. George Animal Steel, pal. Hi. He's got a hairy back. He has the ring bell, pal. Miss Elizabeth. Jesse the Body Ventura. He kidnapped his woman. Like all this business. But you get this match. It's 15 minutes of just flawless wrestling. This was just a flawless match. And it was only 14, 15 minutes. It didn't need to go 65 like some of these New Japan ones in the 2010s. And this 15 minutes is better than those New Japan ones because it was a quarter of the length and it was better. It's just unbelievable. Like what these guys have managed to do now, 37 years on, this pioneered a generation stylistically. This is a technical masterpiece. What more can you say, pal? Just brilliant.
Yeah, this match is like a top tier like TV match nowadays. Essentially, like this match would be like, that's the best Raw match in 5 years. That's the best match in Dynamite in 2 years. Whatever. Like on pay-per-view, this would be a good like upper mid card match now. Like good, co-main event. You put this on before Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania 37 or 38, which are 38, and we might be talking about WrestleMania 38 a little differently, pal. But this match in 1987, nobody was doing stuff like this, like on WWE TV at least. Like, yeah, in the South, Flair and Harley Race and those guys were doing matches like this, but it wasn't being watched the same way that WrestleMania 3 was being watched. The masses were watching this. Like you said, the cartoons, you had like mafia characters, like, and comic book characters, cultists, like, it was all crazy over the top stuff, dentists. But then you had, Macho Man and Ricky Steamboat. We're like 2 wrestlers just having a great match. And yeah, it was just like, this match influenced like Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels and everyone and their mother, bro, was influenced by this match. All the big stars of recent times seemingly have taken some influence from this. And even people like us who, neither one of us were born in 87 or the subsequent years following, and we respect it and we look at it as one of the greatest matches ever, and that speaks more than anything. That speaks volumes to it. And I think, like, if I were to put a place on this, I think this is top 5 still. The top 5 WrestleMania match. It's just so good, so important, and yeah.
No, I couldn't agree more. It's objectively top 5, I think. And it caps off, I'd say, a pretty good list. Obviously, some people will have outrage. Oh my God, you left off Jericho and Shawn from 19. Oh my God, you left off whatever match. Like, obviously, that's always going to happen with these lists. But really, how I did it and how we've done it, we've gone, okay, if I have to watch 10 matches for like the all-time WrestleMania matches, what am I going to watch? And we've done the list accordingly. We've discussed them. Kevin, anything else from you?
Pal, let me ask you a serious question. Serious question here.
Yeah.
Now, let's say you're doing a ranking, right? You're doing a Jimmy's favorite WrestleMania matches of all time.
Yeah.
Where does Triple H versus Booker T from WrestleMania 19 sit on that ranking?
Favorite matches with a racially insensitive storyline. We're talking like favorite matches, just all
No,
like,
favorite
period.
WrestleMania matches all across the board, pal. Is that cracking your top 10? Your top 15? Top 25, pal?
Well, Kevin, once Triple H hit the pedigree and then had a coffee break and then went to a bathroom stop at Safeco Field and then came back down and then had some nachos in the fifth row, pal.
He did
And
the
then
whipping nay, pal.
he called into the ring and was like, he was bobbing the crowd to bow down to the game. Dun, 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 dun. Once he did that and Stephanie was out there dancing, pal, with pom-poms. After that, pal, and Ric Flair was out there shimmying, pal, to the Motorhead. After that, pal, top 50, maybe.
Oh my god. All right, pal. Well, that's been it for our top 10 WrestleMania matches of all time in no particular order. And we'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace.